morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Pastor Tom welcoming you to another study in the Word. I'm so glad you could join me. We're starting a new, I guess you could say, series of teachings. I'm calling this Exposing the Exposing the Hidden Things. I guess you could say it this way, of the system. Exposing the hidden things of the system. How does this system that we're talking about, and we'll talk about that in a minute, work? How, for years and years and years, has this system of occult people that are trying to run everything and trying to bring in the Antichrist, how does this work? Now, you have to understand, first of all, that the Bible says in Luke chapter 12, verse 2, that it says, "But there is nothing covered up that shall not be revealed, and hid that shall not be known." That is absolutely the truth. Things are being revealed very quickly now. It's almost like God has pulled the blind apart and let the light shine, and everything we're seeing out here is amazing. But I have to say this to you before we get started today. Some of the material that I will be talking about is really hard to deal with. So if you have children that are watching this or younger kids, I would say no. I say 18 or older. You've been warned, because some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about is really hard to deal with. These are issues that have to be understood. What's going on all around you? Because a lot of what we see out here is really not the truth. There's things underneath it that have to be exposed so you can understand the truth. Now, you have to understand something. I have been studying this stuff for 40-something years, okay? This is not something that I'm just, willy-nilly coming in. I'm still studying it. I'm still following certain people to learn and listen. But I can give a lot myself. I know a lot. Now, here's another thing. I want you to hear me very carefully, because people tend to have this, it's a conspiracy theory thing. I understand that. There are some things that are conspiracy theories. But it's interesting, the more we go in life here, the more we find out that the conspiracy theories were true. And that's the truth. So it's interesting. Now, with that being said, I want to say this. If I'm not sure about something, I will say this. I will say something like, well, I believe that's probably true. Okay? I believe it's probably true, which means I don't know completely for sure. But if I say I know something, I will say I know. And if you know, you know. And that's the thing about what I'm going to talk about is 20 years ago I didn't know, but today I do know. And the more you know, the more you know. And it's disturbing to know things. Some of this stuff is disturbing to know things. So if you're a person that gets triggered by some of the things that happened in your past or whatever, maybe you don't watch this, okay? Because I'm going to hit some pretty rough stuff, and you have to explain this stuff. All right, with that being said, this is going to be interesting, and I mean really interesting. So get out a nice, notepad and take notes. Stop it if I say something profound, that you haven't heard yet. Make a note, and we will study this together. Now, before we get going on today's first message, I want to say there's some terms that I'm going to give you that we will be using over and over again, all right? Because you just have to. The first one is the word energy. Energy. And the reason that is important to understand when I'm talking about energy here is that all occult practices, all of them, are done for extracting spiritual energy that they believe can be used for greater power, stronger rituals, and give them, greater power and ability to control things, okay, whatever. So it's really not, it's energy, but it's also demons. And of course, many of the occult people don't know that, but then the ones higher up do. And maybe they know it, maybe they don't, but the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter. witchcraft, New Age, all of this, you'll hear this word energy. Okay, it's everywhere. Now, that's important to understand. The second term I'm going to use, and you need to understand, is ley lines and grids. So make a note of that. Ley lines and grids. What are ley lines, Pastor Tom? Well, the way to compare it is much like our electrical systems in America. What comes into your house, you have electric lines that provide the electricity to your home. That electricity flows all the way from a grid or a place where it's generated, okay? It flows through those lines all over the place, and so we have power. The spiritual world is like that also. Even though we can't see the electricity either, you cannot see that spiritual power unless God opened your eyes. But that power is flowing all the time. It's flowing from places called grids, which are places where they do their rituals and places where they do certain things. We'll talk about that in a minute. So you got your ley lines and your grids, okay? Power runs down those, and so do demons. We'll talk about that as we go. So the third thing is, we talk about the grids, but we'll talk about it this way. Doors, altars, places of ritual where they open doors or close doors to release energy and demons or power through those ley lines to another place or places where it can be used. So this is important. If you ever watch War of the Worlds, which is one of my favorite movies, the one with Tom Cruise in it, when the aliens start coming in, the lightning, and they in the scene where the plane crashes by their house, I think it's his mother-in-law's house, they come out of there, and there's a lady there who's reporting the news. She said, "Have you seen this yet?" She shows him that when the lightning was coming down, because it hit the ground, it actually was underground, and these creatures rode that lightning down. That's kind of what I'm talking about. You're talking about these demon forces riding these ley lines to different places and stuff like that. So right there, you can understand that if somehow you can start shutting down these ley lines and these altars, these doors, these portals, they're using different names here, then you can really start having an effect on the enemy's kingdom, and the enemy will not be able to do as much as he used to. This is very important to understand. We have always kind of done spiritual warfare with the understanding that, it's a principality or something, so we bind you, Okay. Well, in deliverance, that's fine. But what I'm talking about now is understanding how it works so we can go to the root of the issue, see? And this is what's happening across America. People are catching on to this. Prayer teams are catching on to this. And when we start praying that way, wow. That every Wednesday night at our church, we have a teaching on prayer, and then we shut down altars and stuff. And it's been amazing because one of our team guys came up to me the other day and said, "Pastor Tom, I think what's happening is, because of the deliverance, all of a sudden this deliverance is taking place. We're talking about major deliverance taking place in people." And he says, "I think it's because we shut down some of these ley lines and grids," and I'll get into all that later. He says, but what's happening is, at first, it's affecting our church and our people because we are the ones doing it, and I believe it's going to go out into our city and cities and area and state. And that really hit me. I believe that's true. I believe we're hitting on something that's going to cause this demonic power that was flowing so strongly that holds all this stuff back. Once we start shutting that down, we're going to see God move in ways in amazing ways to set people free. So that's why this is important. So these grids, these doors, these altars, these places of rituals will open the doors, close the doors to spiritual energy, principalities and powers to release it and all that. They come down these ley lines. And these ley lines run across the entire world. It's really interesting. You get some books on that and you begin to study that. That is really interesting stuff. Now, I begin to get a hold of this. And the Lord began to say to me, get a team, and we don't let everybody do it, but we got a team of people that we go out and we begin to do this. Now, we've been out one couple times, and the results are pretty weird, pretty miraculous. We begin to study about the history of our area, so on and so forth, what happened here, tragedies, all that you do, repenting for bad stuff that happened. We did all that. But where it really got intense is when we actually went out to the places we discovered. Now, what do you mean by that, Pastor Tom? Well, as an example, we found in Door County, Wisconsin, churches called Stella Moss Church, which is connected to the lake, the Leviathan spirit, okay? And there was 5 of them up in Door County. And lo and behold, when we looked at it and we took a line from one to the other, it shaped a pentagram. And you begin to find out that there's a lot going on here. I don't want to get ahead of myself because, see, this is where it gets difficult understanding. And some of the people that I listen to, they go too fast. You have to stop it, and, because it gets really intense. But we found out about this, then I said, we've got to go to each one of those spots, because each one of those spots is where they're doing the rituals, and it comes down to these other ley lines, and it moves it around and connected to other ley lines. Now, you have to understand something. I'm going to say something, and I want you to listen very carefully. Not all Catholics are bad. Many of them are good people. There's some of them that are actually Christians, okay? I'm not getting on the Catholics' case, all right? The reason that many rituals are taking places in or around Catholic churches is much deeper than what you think. Many, many years ago, way back, when our towns, our cities, and so on and so forth were built, the Illuminati, or the system people, I'll just call it the system people, because there's a lot going on this, and we'll get to it, brought in architects that understood portals, altars, all that, and they built these beautiful Catholic churches and others, Orthodox churches and stuff. Not just that, okay, but I'm just talking about that right now. And in them, they built them as places of ritual and power, and where that can flow, where they can make contracts with spirits, where they have places that, high places, and so on. And all these terms will become significant to you, and we'll talk about them as we go. But we need to talk about contracts or covenants, because what has happened is people in the system, and like I said, many Catholic churches are used either inside or outside or underground for rituals, okay, because they were built that way on purpose. The priest might not even know that. The congregation might not even know that. But if people are in the system and they're high up in the system, by that I mean in some of these evil things, they know that these things, actually, you can look on the buildings and they'll see what covenants were made here and what can be done, what rituals, when they're done. It gets really technical, but you can actually tell when they're going to do a ritual, where it's going to be, so on and so forth. So it gets to be really interesting, because again, I say this, if you know, you know. And that's disturbing. I can't drive down the street anymore and look at something and go, oh, isn't that pretty? Sometimes I have to go, oh my God, because I know what's going on in there or around there. That's disturbing. But it's also refreshing, eye-opening, and interesting. And so this whole thing's going to be interesting. And this is why I want to take it slow, because I think sometimes when people are describing this stuff, they're doing it too quickly. So I'm doing my study, all right? And so this is interesting because these architects built these places as places of power, places where you can do rituals, altars. We hear that a lot. Places where portals, doors that open to the spiritual world and let in and let out these things, It's amazing. Let's take it on the other side just for a second. Your church, no matter where it is, our born-again, spirit-filled churches, our good churches, are portals. Okay? The story of in the Old Testament where the angels were coming down, open the portal, and they're coming down on the what do you call that? What you call it, up and down the ladder, Jacob's ladder. That's a real thing. And our churches are places of spiritual doors that open and close. When we're having our services, angels come down. Sometimes in our services they're sent to do things because of the message, the prophecy, the tongues and interpretation. I don't want to get too heavy for you right now. We'll go slow. But just realize that every church is like that. So Satan really came up with a lot of this stuff and kind of got it from God. You've heard terms like high places. In the Old Testament, they tell the prophets, go down, get up there and, cut all the Asher's poles off and the Baal poles off and cut down, the high places where they were worshiping. Well, those are portals. Those are altars where they set things up so that these evil spirits could come and so on and so forth. And we have so many things in the Bible about this. When you start looking for it, it's really interesting. And yes, even in the New Testament. See, because I've had people say, that's Old Testament stuff. No. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised when we get into this, how much is going on. And it's really interesting because it exposes things and shows us what we can do about it. So, covenants and contracts. A lot of people that are experts on this use the word contract because when they came out of the occult or when they were in the occult, they had to make these contracts with these fallen angels, sometimes Lucifer himself or the devil, so on. I call them covenants because normally in their contracts, in their covenants, there's blood. Just like we have a new covenant with Jesus Christ, we don't have to make covenants like that anymore because he did it once and for all. In fact, it's really interesting to me that people in the occult are trying to ascend the Godhead. That's the whole thing. We want to be gods. Lucifer said that, right? And God Almighty told Adam and Eve, in the Bible, we are new creations. And what he's saying is we were made in the image and likeness of God. Now, we're not gods, but we are as high beings as you can get closest to him. Human beings. Born again, spirit-filled human beings are as close to the Godhead as you can get without being God, but close and above angels and everything. So they're trying to get there by works, by rituals, by blood sacrifices, by this, by that. We're already there the second we receive Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. Big difference. For by grace are we saved through faith, see. So if you're looking in on this and you don't know that and understand that, why should you suffer all this stuff you go through to try to get to another level of whatever it is you're trying to get to, when all you have to do is ask Jesus Christ into your heart and serve him, and all of a sudden you'll have that position, It'll be different than you're thinking because he's going to take all the nasty stuff out of you. But anyway, I regress. So you have contracts. You have covenants. You made even certain contracts with demonic things or fallen angels. You'll hear that a lot. You'll hear the word Nephilim or the Nephilim agenda. Of course, that goes back to Genesis chapter 6 where the sons of God or the angels of God came down and had sex with fair women that they chose, and then they had giants and they had other people that were supernaturally different, half humans, hybrids and all that kind of stuff. And that's been going on for years now in laboratories and the occult and everything else. And we'll talk about that as we go because that's a big subject. So you're going to hear the term Jesuits, because the Jesuit Catholics are one of the most powerful occult organizations in the world today. They have tons of power, they have tons of money, and they're behind a lot of things. You're going to hear that. You're going to hear the word Mormons, because Mormons, my family, again, on my mother's side, were all Mormons, some of them really strong Mormons. The word Mormons is going to be used here and there because that is one of the 5, I guess you could say, occult powers. Now, let me stop again. Not all Mormons are bad people. Most of them are very good people. Most Mormons don't even know what they believe. The ones that do know, not necessarily are they evil people at the top that do all the nasty things we will talk about, but Mormon temples and stuff are just ritual sites. I mean, we'll find that out. The Mormons are very powerful. They have a lot of money. Recently, they have now taken, they used to fight with the Catholic Church, but they come together. All right, and we'll talk about that as we go. So there's lots of money involved in this. There's lots of people involved in this, and so on. So then we have the Illuminati, and there's not just one. There's different things in there, but the Illuminati. Most of us have heard that term, the Illuminati, or the Illuminated Ones. That would include things like Masons. This stuff's all tied in. So what I'm trying to show you in a minute, I'll help. Then you have the Satanists, and there's all kinds of different Satanists. We'll get into that. Okay, and then you have the Kabbalists, or the Kabbalah. Those 5 things, all right, the Jesuits, the Mormons, the Illuminati, the Satanists, and the Kabbalah, are all 5 very powerful organizations that are all tied in together. And we'll start talking about all this stuff. But you have to understand, there is no such thing as churches being separated in the system. If you're a Mormon, you're connected to the other things. If you're a Satanist at the top of that, you're all connected. They know that. They work together. Don't always get along, but we will see the power structure. So if you're Rosicrucian, if you're a Mason, and I can say 1,000 things, you're going to find out these guys are all connected. Okay, they're not separate. They just do a little bit different practices, but it's all based and comes from the same source, which is Lucifer. So we're going to also talk about councils, because there's a lot of councils in this system. All right, kind of like we have, in our particular government, we've got the Senate and the House of Representatives and so on, kind of like that. And then you're going to hear this word, queens, or mothers of darkness. That's very important. Mothers of darkness, and then you'll also hear queen mother. Okay, and I'm going to get into this so you can start understanding it very slowly here. So here we go. Lord help me. Okay, I'm going to call this the Luciferian Brotherhood, or the system, because that's what it is. Everything goes back to Lucifer or Satan when it comes to running the entire system. There's so many parts of this system, and this system even includes things like the Muslims, the Buddhists, and New Age people and so on. But we're gonna go from top and go through it all so you can see how it all works. And if you get out a pen and you have some paper there, just draw a triangle or a pyramid that points up. All right? That's important, because whenever you see the pyramid that points up, they would call that a holy contract. And let me stop and say this. There's nothing holy about their holiness, okay? But to them, that's the light side of the system. It's still evil, but it's kind of like you might have white witchcraft and black magic. Those would be 2 sides of the same type of deal. Well, it's kind of like that. Even though the white side is not as evil maybe as the dark side, is still very dangerous and still very evil, because you're using demons and these energy things and everything, and we'll get into that. See, I got to hold myself back from going too fast. I hope you appreciate that. Here's another thing. Take next to that, draw down a pyramid going down. When it points down like that, that's an unholy contract. Okay, you begin to recognize that. So you have holy contracts and unholy contracts with these spiritual demonic forces. Could be Lucifer all the way to his generals, all the way down through all kinds of stuff. Then, if you would, just take the pyramid up, draw one, then draw in the middle, pyramid down, and when you put those two together, you've got your what you call that, the thing in Israel, whatever that symbol is on the Israel flag. Now that is those two worlds coming together. You're going to find out the occult world is always doing this. The things like the yin and the yang, okay? Things that they believe, like Lucifer and Satan are different beings, some of them. And they represent good and bad, but it's all important, to them, okay? Now, my theology, there's the devil and there's God, There's good and evil. The thief comes not but to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus said, I've come that you might have life and you might have it more abundantly. So it's very simple. But in their theology, it's not so simple. You'll have some Satanists, as an example, that say, anyway, at the lower levels, and I know this is true that some of them do believe this, that they're not really a devil. It's a symbol of just, it's kind of a rebellious thing against the system, the Christian system, and so on and so forth, that Satan represents freedom to them and all that. But they don't really have rituals that are maybe as dark as some of the other ones, and they don't really believe in a person called Satan. Well, maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know that for sure. I believe they probably all do to a certain extent, but that's just my belief. I've had them tell me that's not true, but you can't trust anything some of these people say because Satan's a liar and his people have to lie. So there you go. But then you got the people that are really into generational Satanism and stuff, where that is, one of the most horrible things you'll ever hear in the history of the world, and they're hard to believe even. I had a hard time believing some of this stuff. Now, though, I know it. I don't believe it anymore. I know it, and that's what makes it so difficult. When you know, you know. And you'll begin to know as we go into this teaching. So we have the governor of the Luciferian Brotherhood. So at the very top, you take an upward pointed pyramid and draw a little line through the very top of it, and and just put a little line out there and say Lucifer or Satan, however you want to do it. He's at the top. He's in control of all this stuff. But it's really interesting when outside of that, you also draw a line, and it'll be his generals. And we'll talk about all that later. I don't want to get into all that today because it's, we don't have time. But so you have Lucifer, Satan, and the demonic generals at the top of that pyramid, at the top of the system. But number two is very interesting, and I did not know this, but it's very interesting. Now I know. That's not something I believe. This is, I know that I know. So when I'm telling you this, you can accept it if you trust me, but you'll find out it's true. In the system, they love to mock God, and they love to mock everything about what he does. In the Bible, of course, the man in the family unit is the head of the home, and the man is supposed to take the head in things, and in our society and so on. But they, at the top, the top positions are not men, they're women. See, this is a kind of a blasphemy thing. But right underneath Lucifer, there are what we call 5 mothers of darkness, or queens of darkness. They're named different things. I call them mothers of darkness. And so there's 5 of them, but there's one of them that is called the Queen Mother. All right? And the Queen Mother of darkness, underneath Lucifer and the or Satan or the Brotherhood there, the generals, runs everything. The Queen Mother talks to Lucifer every day and gets what he wants to do, and then it's passed down through the system. So there's one person that really runs the whole thing. Really interesting. The other mothers of darkness are over, I'll just call it regions. Some people call it quadrants. But what it is, maybe parts of America, all of America, and then you got Europe, and you got, it's all over the world. The Queen Mother has to keep up with all of that activity, while these other 5, they do different regions, so on and so forth. So each mother of darkness is assigned to different regions or quadrants, and in Europe and the United States, all across the world. So the Queen Mothers oversee everything and report to Lucifer. Now there's 4 Queen Mothers that are all connected to Isis. You're going to find out Isis, Asteria, Astros, all that, Jezebel, Lilith, it's all the same thing, pretty much. It's just different terms. So you'll begin to understand that right off. A lot of these are women, female imagery. And then you got, you got like in the Mothers of Darkness, you have in the system it'll be the Virgin, it'll be the maiden, and it'll be the crone. The crone being older and probably more evil. So they're all called different things. So each Mother of Darkness is in charge of these ley lines, charge of the next thing that will be down the line is what they call councilmen. And they're be like a board of directors, okay? And the board of directors will oversee certain things, regions, either in the United States or overseas. And it goes down, one more step down, is something called the 300, the seats of 300. There's around 300. And this is called the Druidic Council, or the Satanic Council, or the Global Alliance, or the Universal Alliance, and even United Nations. Now, I know that not all the United Nations people are probably in this. Some of them are. The United Nations, to me, is very evil. It always has been, and I think we need to be out of it. Well, I run out of time. So we just got started, didn't we? We'll go back through this again. Let me mark on here where we stopped, because there's a lot to it. But if you're enjoying this, please share it with somebody. I hope that this will help you to begin to understand the system and what's happening, what they do, and so on and so forth. We'll go slow. We'll talk about it as we go. And maybe when I start doing my podcast, we can even have a place where we can ask questions and all that. But anyway, I love you guys very much. Feed your faith and starve your doubts to death. I want you to learn, but I want you to also protect your minds. Go spend some time with the Lord Jesus when we talk about some of this stuff, because it does get to you after a while, especially when we really get into it, what they're doing and with children and so on, which is coming pretty soon. I didn't get there. Share it, like it, subscribe. Until next time, we love you. God bless you.